Hey everyone, welcome to Freedom Review Part 3. This is going to be the final video, and in this video I want to address mainly the feedback that I got for Parts 1 and 2. So, first of all, I'd like to say that Parts 1 and Part 2 turned out to be quite different, because when I was doing Part 1, I was really meaning it to be something like an entertaining AVGN style kind of review. If you look at my channel, Bad Geek, that's basically the idea of the channel. Look, it's not very original. I understand that I'm nowhere near as good as AVGN, but when I started the channel, I thought, hey, what if I do AVGN style kind of reviews, but about Linux, because this is a niche that nobody really tried to do. And so that was kind of the idea of the channel. I'm not taking it too seriously, and also it turned out to be, not that interesting, because once you start going through open source games, what you realize is that a lot of them are not as fun to critique, because if they're bad, they're usually not hilariously bad. They're just average and mediocre, many of them. And while you can point out things that just don't work, the only thing you can really say about them is, well, they don't work. And so I kind of looked at all the games available in the repositories and realized that it's very difficult to find something that is fun to review. So the channel kind of slowed down a lot. But then once I decided to do Freedom reviews, Part 1 was meant to be still in this vein of, hey, I'm Bad Geek, sort of AVGN style kind of guy. And therefore, I think that it became too personal, like some of the criticism was too harsh without me really intending to hurt anybody's feelings. And look, when you're doing the same thing for a commercial game, I think it feels differently because it's a much more detached experience. Somebody was doing this game, they were paid for it, so probably not as invested, although this could be debatable, but also they're very unlikely to actually see your review, and it feels like criticizing a product you bought, and just feels more legitimate. Whereas with the open source situation, of course, it's different because, look, I've posted this to the community, and there are people who are working on the game, and so in the comments, people started actually mentioning the artist by name and saying, are you saying that this person cannot draw? And so it became personal very quickly. And I, of course, didn't mean this to get personal, but I think I had to foresee this. So I do sincerely apologize if I didn't mean to offend anyone. And if I knew what I know now, I would have definitely worded my criticism in such a way that it would be specifically focused only on the art itself and make sure that I'm not in any way criticizing the people doing the art. But having said that, I would say that the criticism itself, I feel, could be still useful. It could still be useful because if you would consider somebody coming like an outsider who knows nothing about Freedoom and are just presented with a game, and I think that many of them would feel the same way. They would not be invested in the community. They would not be invested in the history of the project, which is, while interesting, is just not relevant to the game itself. And I think that some of them just might say, this is total crap, simply because they look at a zombie and they feel that this is just not a very serious drawing and just, switch off the game. And I don't want that to happen. So getting feedback from an outsider who's not invested in the project, I think, could be very useful. Even if you disagree, but at least this has to, I think, factor into the work. Now, I've received another comment, which was, allow me to just read this short comment. When you understand that they were drawn by amateur artists who were not paid for the work, you can see that most of it is quite good. So, and I understand that. I understand that we can take this route of lowering the standards because, artists are not being paid. But I just fundamentally disagree with such a philosophy. And in fact, I have to disagree with it precisely because we want to focus on the art and not on the people behind the art. If we care about the art and if we want to create something shareable, it should be worth sharing. And right now I feel it's really not. If somebody would ask me, hey, would you consider suggesting like a total Doom conversion to people or Freedoom, most of the time I would choose some better total Doom conversion, and I would want to actually suggest Freedoom. So I would rather focus on the art. And you know what? Maybe looking at Part 1, at this kind of outsider feedback, maybe as a community we would come to the conclusion that, hey, let's crowdsource and actually pay some of the artists to make sure that the key elements, the monsters, are very well produced. Maybe that's the result. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe we should seriously consider this if we're not able to create this shareable work based on volunteers alone. I would actually like to go through the monster sprites right now, but before I do that, I'd like to address another very important point. And this is, I think, one of the most constructive elements of criticism that came out of Part 1, where I said that I think that the theme of the Doom games is hellish, not insects. And I feel that this is a very important point, and here's why. So the idea of a game, like, let's put it this way, the idea of Freedoom was that we have shareable code, and now we want to also create shareable graphics to go with it. And that means that we'll have a shareable free version of Doom. And some people said that, look, the important part is that the engine is the same. The engine is Doom. But the graphics, that's not important. And I disagree with that, because then you can say, oh, well, Hexen is the same as Doom because the engine is the same. The game is more than just its technical engine. The game is a work of art, graphics, sound design. All of that really matters. And if we want to create a free version of Doom, free Doom, then it has to feel as Doom. It has to, like, we have to make sure we're not violating copyright. And I understand that there is an email from Carmack that is publicly available, and I have read through it, where he says that we have to be careful. And basically he says, and I'm quoting, "You can make a completely different game using the code with our blessing, but if it has imps, cyber demons, BFGs, etc., then you're treading on thin ice." I think that what he's saying here is not that you're not allowed to take the hellish theme. He's saying that if you take the imp and basically redraw the imp and just say, oh, I redrew the imp and now I'm releasing this under Creative Commons, of course you're going to be in trouble, and that's not the point of Creative Commons. But I think that taking the hellish theme is key to capturing the spirit of the game. If somebody asks me, what is this Doom game about? I'm going to be saying, well, this is a 3D shooter where you fight the forces of hell. That's what the game is about, and so much of the aesthetic of the game is, 666 and turnover cross and, all of that stuff. So I think that this is such an important part of Doom identity that you cannot just take it and switch it for something else and just say, hey, but we have the engine. So I feel that this is the important part, and this is a criticism that I think the community needs to take a little bit more seriously and rethink the concept. And also, we already have sprites that are absolutely incredible. So let's actually dive into the actual sprites. Okay, so here are the sprites, enemy sprites from the latest version 0.12. So this is the zombie. And honestly, the zombie just doesn't work for me. I understand that it's better than the older versions, and we're going to look at them in this video further down the line, but I don't know, this just doesn't work for me. The awkward movements, which are meant to demonstrate the real zombie, they just make this drawing look not very serious. So, I don't know, I don't buy the zombie. I don't buy this zombie as well. The shotgun zombie, it just doesn't work for me. I have some suggestions on how to fix this later. But yeah, these two sprites I feel are really, like, they really make Freedoom look very amateurish, even if the actual skill involved was high. This is the chain gunner, and this is the sprite that I really enjoy. I know that some people pointed out that he's walking as if he wants to pee. I don't really care about that. I do have some criticism about this sprite in that, first of all, we're not coming into Freedoom from a vacuum, right? We understand that this is a Doom conversion, therefore we are going to be searching for enemies that are similar. So this is the chain gunner, therefore we're going to be saying, okay, how do we know that it's chain gunner? And nothing in this sprite indicates that you're being chain gunned. It looks like somebody's pointing a flashlight at you. That's it. Like, I had, like, literally when playing the game, I remember one of the first times I was like, oh, so this is a chain gunner, and boom, I'm already dead because it doesn't look like it. So maybe it has to flash somehow so that you can see that it's an actual chain gunner. But other than that, this is a pretty good sprite. I think this looks very nice. This is my least favorite sprite. It's an insect. It's very far away from Doom. We already talked about the hellish theme, and I just cannot identify with this. And at the same time, Imp as a monster is typically this it's not even, you would not call it a mid-tier monster, it's a low-tier monster, and therefore it's very frequent in the game, and it basically defines the look of many levels. And so I think this is a very important monster. I have a suggestion for this monster later, but this totally does not work for me, and I think this should be replaced. So the worm. I would like to read one of the comments that people left on my review, and I actually changed my opinion on the worm dramatically. The pink worm is an example of a clever replacement that does have a horror hellish tone to it, and yet you still get to call it Pinky. It's actually one of my favorite sprites in Freedoom. So that's the comment. I think that I agree with it. The monster did grow on me, and I feel that indeed, out of all of these monsters, if this was the only monster that looked a little bit like an insect, I would not even mention this. So as time went by, I realized that this is not only a very clever replacement, that I fundamentally don't have any problems with the animation. Nice sprite, so I'm really taking this back. Love the worm, more worms. And I just killed it. So this is basically the Lost Soul does not work for me. First of all, you can see that this is a skull, so if there are any actual concerns that this is too similar to Doom, I mean, this is as similar as it gets. It's a skull on fire. So this is what the Lost Soul is. It doesn't look very convincing. The reason I called it like it's drawn like a child, not because it was literally, and I thought it was literally drawn by somebody who doesn't have the skill, but that I don't like the concept, and the lower part of the skull, it just looks like a mess. I don't know. This is not a very pretty, sprite for me. So I don't like this. This is not good. I said that this looks like like Sultan's hat. I mean, seriously, I mean it does. If I could give you some constructive criticism on that, then it would be that it doesn't look like a living creature at all. If it would have certain eyes or you would have a mouth, then it would be maybe better. But it looks like some technical thing with tentacles. It just doesn't look like a living creature, you know? So maybe give it something like eyes or something like that. The single eye just doesn't look like an eye. It looks like a flashlight. Okay, so this is not bad. This sprite is good. I like it. It looks a little bit cartoonish, and I think the reason for this is that you have the bright colors. This sprite and the next one as well, they are, I think, a little bit too bright for the Doom aesthetic. If you change the colors a little bit, make them darker, then maybe that's gonna be much better. But it's okay. These are okay. The Technol Spider is fine. I would not say that this is my favorite sprite or anything like that, but it's fine. It's probably a sprite where I would not necessarily say much about it. I do like the touch of having these rounded tentacles. The rounded legs look very nice and menacing, so not bad, not bad. Normal sprite. Summoner, no. Sorry, this does not work for me. I think it has to be... Okay, Dark Soldier. Guys. Now this is fucking awesome. This is by far my most favorite sprite in the whole bunch. And what we're looking at is a perfect imp. Why can't we use that for an imp? It looks incredible because on the one hand, it looks different from the imp. It looks pretty different. On the other hand, it looks in line with the Doom feel. So this sprite is absolutely excellent. Please use this for the imp. Yes, I sincerely hope that this is a placeholder. We're gonna see it very soon. This sprite is very old, and it was present even in very old versions of Freedoom. But like, this is, yeah, this has to be replaced, obviously. Funny though, very funny. Okay, Necromancer, another fantastic sprite. So I understand that this is the new sprite that has been added. Guys, huge thanks to the person who drew this. This is fucking fantastic. This is incredible. Love it. And it is, again, a way to create a pretty hellish enemy, which is very different from what Doom has, but at the same time, it's in the spirit of Doom. Love it. Necromancer. Fucking great. And I killed it. So large Technol Spider, I mean, I don't have much to say about it. I said all I could say in the review. I think the sprite has ultimately to be replaced with something more convincing. But what do you replace it with? Well, actually, what about replacing it with with this? This looks like a wonderful, incredible boss spider, and I actually like this monster. It's very good. I commented on this before in the review. It has great sounds. I like the sound effects that accompany it, and at the same time, it's a spider. So why not use that for a Technol Spider and come up with something else for the Cyber Demon? All right, and then finally, I think we're coming to the savior of humanity, our hero. This sprite, I think, is very good. I like it. And here is the suggestion that I have for the zombie. I think that this sprite could also be the base for the zombie sprites. And maybe once we use that for the zombie, because this actually looks very similar to the chain gunner in this version, right? Maybe what makes sense is to use that actually as a base for the zombie sprites, change them up a little bit, but then come up with an original chain gunner sprite, because I really think that this just does not work as a chain gunner, but it might work as a zombie, like this Techno zombie. Why not? Okay, so this is my approach to sprites today, and again, huge thanks to the artists that worked on these new additions. Necromancer is fucking incredible. Let's take a look at one of the earliest versions that I could find. So the version in question is, I think, 0.6, and I have a special save right here that will allow us to look at the sprites. So these are the earliest publicly available sprites of Freedoom, at least within a game that you can download. So the Zombie Man, the concept is the same, and I think, again, that the concept should be changed, not the sprite. Heavy Weapon Dude, pretty much the same sprite. Well, almost the same, slight changes. This is so I remember playing Freedoom when this sprite was the main one. I apologize if this offends someone's sensibilities, you know, but I actually like this monster more than the current insect that we have. This monster, no offense to the artist who drew it, but I just don't like it within the it's not Doom. This is not Doom. But I like it more than the current one. Demon, pretty much our same favorite worm. Lost Soul, same thing. Cacao Demon, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see evolution in open source projects, and the current Cacao Demon is definitely an evolution of this. I'm not sure that I like this either. Hell Knight. So let me use this time to address one of the mistakes that I actually made in part 1. And this was kind of nasty and definitely unintended. So I was looking at monsters in my part 1, and what I did was I said that the wiki says that this is what the monster looks like, but it doesn't look anything at all like this, and I was looking at this Hell Knight monster right over here. The thing is that I was using a modern distro, but the Freedoom version that comes with in official repositories is typically older, right? And so, of course, I didn't know that. And I think that, like, I apologize for the error, but at the same time, how would anybody know? Right, and so I think that what might help, and the useful thing that you can take out of this criticism and out of this mistake that I made, is that maybe it makes sense to make sure that when somebody's reading the wiki on Freedoom, that it's clear that there are versions of monsters. Because, I mean, this is a small thing, and probably not many people are going to be reviewing the Freedoom like I did, like AVGN style, or in general, like really diving into everything. But I think that it might help to maybe think about representation, because as this is a work in progress, it might be helpful to align people with the latest version. Yeah, this is basically right. This is the older sprite. No comment.
No code for binary class.
Yep. So these are the older graphics. So a lot of things were not available. And this is our hero, which actually looks more like a chain gunner, right? So yeah, these are the older sprites, and it's a lot of fun looking at the evolution of the project. And from the point of view of a person who understands what open source is and how much work is going into this and how invested everybody is, I totally understand this. And this could be a segue to address a very frequent comment that I got, was that, oh, this review is outdated because a new version is out. I really appreciate people telling me that the new version is out in general, but saying that this invalidates my previous criticism, I think this does not work as an argument. And the reason why I think it doesn't work is because unless the change from version 0.11 to 0.12 is so dramatic that it completely invalidates everything that I said, or the majority of what I said, then sure. But if it's mostly the same and there are only incremental changes, well, why would it matter? And I think that in many cases, this did not actually change what I was saying. And a lot of my criticism, apart from me making a mistake with the Hell Knight, and there being a different sprite, the rest was pretty much the same. In fact, somebody said that because Freedoom is a constant work in progress, you cannot criticize it at all. And I just feel this is ludicrous. I mean, Freedoom is a constant work in progress. Does it mean that we can never review it, like ever? And also, you know, if it's such a work in progress that you cannot really even criticize it, but then why do you feel that it's okay to add it to official Ubuntu repositories? Like, feels a little like a double standard. If it's such a work in progress that you shouldn't criticize it, then please don't publicly release it. But if you're releasing it as a game that can be played, then expect some criticism. And honestly, criticizing something doesn't mean that you hate it. It in many cases means that you actually care. And I definitely care about Freedoom. But there was one thing in part 2 that was actually very important, and that is the new version of Doom has changed level 1, and that is truly relevant to part 2 of my review. Well, unfortunately, this level is actually worse than the first level that I criticized in part 2. And let's go ahead and take a look at what the level is. So first of all, immediately, we can see that there are enemies below, right over there. This is bad. The reason why it's bad is because this is actually one of the deficiencies of Doom in general, in that enemies that are somewhere below, because this is not a true 3D game, you can actually still interact with them while they're below. And so this is basically showing this problem immediately. So this is not good. I would definitely avoid situations like that in level design for Doom in general. Don't put enemies in a pit under the player. It's just a bad thing. Now we get into that area and we see that there are several imps, actually 4 of them, which are attacking you. All you have is a pistol. So what am I supposed to do? This is very tedious. If I would have a shotgun, sure, but I don't. So, like, what's going on here? So that's not very interesting to play. It's just not a good gameplay decision. And also you're basically outgunned very quickly. Okay, so we have some armor here, an homage to level 1, I guess. So this is where we first can get some, you know, our hands on a shotgun. This is not pristinely true. I'll address this later. You'll see what I'm talking about. And interestingly enough, by the time you get here, sometimes like the amount of ammo that you have in your pistol is sometimes really low. So I got additional ammo from these guys, but actually by the time I entered the room, there was not a lot. So I was in situations where I would kill the imps, enter, and would have no ammo to actually kill anybody and get my shotgun. Also, I think that it's not helpful that in this level, the additional shells are a secret. Like, why? This should not be a secret. This should be, you know, a proper pickup. Okay, so let's go back. You have to wait for the elevator. Okay. So another area. Now, in theory, we could actually have started here, I think, right? And then I would be able to get some of the, I would be able to get my shotgun. But not really. Look at this. The fact that you cannot get it hints that maybe there's a secret, but there is actually no secret that will allow you to take this gun. I hate situations in like Doom level design when there's an item that you cannot pick up. There are 2 secrets. We already got one secret, and we're now going to go pick up another one. I don't remember if you like have to actually open it, or I think it gets open later. I think, yeah, this is when the secret opens. I also don't like it. You just have to then make sure that you go back to find a secret. Also, I think a very bad decision. And honestly, I think that it doesn't work very well as the first level of the game. It's just, I think it's a worst first level. So if we take a look at it again, so of course you can choose to go here, and that's going to be a different experience. However, because the player is beginning right over here, they're more likely to go here, right? So you're basically forcing them to go this route, and it is just not a very good route to go. Nothing special here. I feel that this is a little strange that you have a door here and a door there. Feels like an awkward way to make sure that the player doesn't have to run around. But then what is the value of this room over here? Like, I just don't understand this. And in general, if you take a look at the map, it just feels a little random. You know, it doesn't feel like it's the first map of the game, and then this map actually teaches you something about the game. It just feels like a random map. So I'm kind of divided on this issue. I have a mixed opinion on this one. Thing is, it's not a bad secret in general. The fact that it's not some button, the fact that you just have to notice that there's an opening here and you can go through it, and then you have to notice that there are stairs here and you can actually access this area. This is not a bad idea. I actually do like it, and then it gives you the chainsaw, which is a nice touch. In fact, the first level of Doom 2 has sort of a similar thing where you have to go back in order to retrieve the chainsaw. You might not actually do this in the first time. So it feels like a good idea, and I would generally like it. But I guess the way it's done, I don't know. Like, let's put it this way. I like the concept, but I'm not a fan of how it's done specifically in this level. Maybe it should have been simpler. This really, like, even visually, even if you know, I remember knowing that you have to go there, and it took me a while to actually find this opening again when I was playing this level. So, not a bad idea, but I'm not sure about its implementation. Anyway, so this is the first level, and as you can see, it's problematic. And so therefore, when people leave comments along the lines of, hey, but there's a new version, you have to understand that this new version has to actually address the criticism. And as long as it doesn't, my review, albeit old and looking at the older levels, continues to be relevant. And I would really love for my reviews to become irrelevant because the game just becomes amazing. Please make it amazing. I'm a huge fan of Freedoom, and I would love for us to have a shareable version of Doom that is truly worth sharing.